Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. We want to say thank you to our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral Health at 265 State Street in Mount Pleasant. If you guys are looking for a different type of rehab, give these guys a call because they definitely do things completely different. You can reach them at 435-462-2781. Janessa, again, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure having you in the
Thanks for having
studio
me.
here with us. And yeah. Was your drive safe this morning? Good.
Yep, it was great.
Traffic was smooth.
Yep.
I always like when school gets out because it seems like traffic kind of calms down just a
Yeah.
little bit, which is weird.
Yeah, it is nice that it slows down.
Yeah.
I hate driving in traffic so much.
I'm with
And
you too.
construction.
Yeah. The traffic and the construction stuff, I get really irritated. Janan can definitely vouch for that. Hey, we have a real special guest with us today. We've got Joe, and instead of saying your last name, I'm just say Joe Dayton Strong Recovery. I like that. And Joe, I don't even remember how you and I met because I've been meeting so many flipping people.
Pain to Purpose.
Pain to Purpose. That's right. Because we just had Amanda on.
Right.
Yep.
And
that's
you
right.
You were on live with Amanda is when I came across you.
Yep. That is 100% correct. Yeah. We was in the studio here last week doing a lot of crying, or it was a week, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, with Amanda. Yeah. Awesome lady. We really enjoyed having her on, and her show will be airing here, hopefully here in the next week or so. But yeah, that is right. So, Joe, you and I had a chance to get on the phone and chat, and usually a 5 to 10 minute chat when it comes to me. I don't know if it is with you. So I apologize if I kept you on the phone too long, but I think we were on the phone for about 45 minutes.
That's awesome.
We were.
Yeah. Just talking about different things, and Joe was able to share a lot of stuff, what's happened in his life, and I shared some what was going on in my life. But Joe, if you would, man, just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I grew up southeastern Indiana, so I'm a country boy at heart.
Awesome.
I live in the city now. I'm in Dayton, Ohio, but I grew up in Indiana. You know, I grew up in the farming community, and I don't like the city. You know, I miss where my nearest neighbor is, you know, acres and acres and acres away from me. You know, you got to turn left at the cow on the corner, you know. I mean, it was dirt roads and gravel where I grew up. There's no lines on the road, you know. But, you know, where I'm at in my life today, I ended up in Dayton, Ohio. You know, I grew up middle class family, like I said, in southeastern Indiana. It's right on the Indiana Ohio line, not too far from Cincinnati, but we're on the Indiana side, of course. And I had a good childhood. You know, I was a normal, ornery kid growing up. I'm 45 years old now, so I was born in 76, so I'm a 70s baby. And, you know, I had a really good childhood. Nothing really out of the ordinary other than I rebelled as a kid. My family at the time, my mom and dad, felt that Catholic school was the best choice, best option. Very German Catholic family. The last name's pronounced Schablein, which is a horrible German last name to try to pronounce. And I didn't like going to Catholic schools. So from an early childhood, I can remember kicking, yelling, screaming, doing what kids do, because I didn't want to go to Catholic school. You know, this was the Catholic school with the convent right there on grounds with the school. You know, nuns that had more facial hair than I do, that beat you with rulers. You know, I mean, it was a strict school. So, you know, I got into a lot of fights, and I didn't want to go to school, and all my friends were in public schools. So I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to be there. And I I had to tough it out for about 4 years, and
Wow.
finally was able around like the fifth grade mark. I was able to transfer into the public school system and got to hang out with my friends. And, I started to relax a little bit. Going into high school, I was very active in sports. I played baseball, I played football, um, very active in both. Really weird because in high school, I was 310 pounds. I worked out a lot, was, you know, in good shape. And I was a pitcher too, on top of it. So I'm a
Holy cow.
defensive tackle, big 300-pound, 6 foot guy, and I'm a pitcher.
Wow.
Um, I had a rocket for an arm, but I had no control. So they'd send me into relief for a couple innings, and after that, if you were in the parking lot getting popped, you weren't safe because I'd throw them over the backstop. So wild man.
Mhm.
But you know, I can remember being in high school. Um, I can see the isolation today. Like I have social anxiety. One of many mental health things that I struggle from. And I don't like to be around a lot of people. I don't like to be around a lot of large crowds. So you can imagine how high school was. I mean, it was about 1,000 people in our school at the time. 900 to 1,000 people, and I didn't like to go to school. Still, even with being in public school, so I skipped school a lot. I barely graduated high school because of the skipping. Um, my mom and dad divorced when I was about 13 years old, while I was in the public school system. And, there's that family separation. I was mama's boy. I'm still mama's boy, even though she's not with us anymore. And, I they had to make a choice. Are you going to go with dad and stay at home in Indiana in the public school system, or are you going to go with your mom? Well, ultimately, they made the choice for me. I stayed in Indiana to finish out high school, and I continued to play sports and that. But I was still a loner. I was different. I felt like I was uh, just the oddity in the room. I was always the elephant in the room, I guess is what I'm looking for. Um, Everybody drove lifted four-wheel drive trucks and listened to country music, and I drove lowered mini trucks with loud bass pumping stereos and just obnoxious. um, but that was me. I
Mhm.
listened to heavy metal and hip hop, and they listened to country and drove lifted trucks, and I was just always different. Not that there's anything wrong with that because I love them both, but that was just me in school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I skipped a lot, and I barely passed. Um, I didn't see any of this then, but I do today. Um, I didn't smoke. Getting into the addiction end of it for me, and the addictive behaviors. The rebelling, the yelling, kicking, screaming, the control issues I struggled with, the I want when I want it attitude. None of that was obvious, obviously, back then. They are now. Sneaking dad cigarettes, um, sneaking alcohol from the bar. We had a fully stocked open bar in our house.
Wow.
Had parties all the time. Um, but I wasn't a big drinker, and I didn't smoke, but I liked to sneak a cigarette because I thought it was cool. So if I was going to go sneak a beer, I was going to smoke a cigarette too. So just those types of behaviors, I can see those then, or see them now, but I didn't see them then.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
Um,
and how old were you at that time?
14, 15 years old. So,
Okay.
in that range, shortly after puberty and um, mom and dad divorcing, I was emotionally tore up over that, because
Yeah, of
I love
course.
my mom, and when your mom is a boy and you're used to being around your mom all the time, and then mom and dad divorced after a 20-year marriage,
Yeah.
um, it was rough. It was really rough. So it was me and my older sister. I have one older sibling, and my dad at the house, and my sister during that point, she's 10 years older than I am. So she was doing, late teen, early 20s stuff, during all this. So like she was always out. She was never home. She was working. The house became a bachelor's pad because it was literally just my dad and I there towards the end. My sister had moved out. I actually moved in with my mom, and they had gotten like a condo somewhere together. And my dad, love him to death, super relationship. But it was a bachelor's pad. He worked. He retired from Pepsi Cola after like 32, 33 years with them. And, there really wasn't any rules. There wasn't really any supervision. I could come and go when I wanted to. I could do what I wanted when I wanted to. I could skip school and he would never know that I was skipping school because he was never home.
Mm-hmm.
He left before I went to school and he came home after I was supposed to have been at school. So he never knew. I would forge whatever letters they wanted. I would answer whatever phone calls they wanted. They always thought they were talking to my dad when they were calling from school, checking up on Joe. Why isn't Joe in school today? And they thought I'm a junior, so they thought they were talking to senior. Well, they weren't. They were always talking to me. They just didn't know it because they never talked to anyone else but me. But I barely passed. I could just see all these behaviors going on at that age. And I started gaining a lot of weight. And that's where I realized, I was an addict. That's where my addiction came in, was with food. In my early 20s, I married, first marriage, number one.
Okay, we'll see if you pass me by the end of the show. Just throwing it out there. My wife's in the studio and she's over there shaking her head as soon as you said that was number one.
It was number one. So, I'm in my early 20s. I married my first wife. Knowing it was a bisexual relationship. She was bisexual. I knew that going into it. I thought we were in love. I thought it was the right thing. I gained a bunch of weight. By that point, after I graduated high school, like I said, I barely graduated high school, and I was drinking going to night school. I forgot to mention that. That was another addictive behavior that I didn't really identify back then. But, it's not normal when you're 16 years old to go to night school, to graduate high school and be drinking a Jack and Coke while you're in class. Well, I did
Wow.
that. I was doing those kinds of things, putting them in a sippy cup from the gas station. I'd go and fill it up halfway with Coke and fill the rest of it up with Jack Daniels and then go sit in class and go to night school so I could graduate and get screwed up while I was sitting there at the same time.
Wow.
How they didn't smell it or realize it is completely beyond me. I have no idea. But I got away with it. I blew up, 310 pounds in high school. I was already a big guy. The depression, the anxiety really started hitting me hard in my early 20s. I was always a hard worker. I always worked a full-time job. At this point in my life, in my early 20s, I was working for Citibank, was working for their recovery department. I was one of those guys that aggravated people and called them and said, "You owe us money." And I had gotten up to 510 pounds.
Seriously?
Wow.
Holy
by
cow.
the age of 26. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
510 pounds at the age of 26. So from, the late teens into my mid 20s, I just ate uncontrollably. I would go out with friends to bars and drink. There was a lot of drinking and driving involved. But I still never considered any of that. I thought it was normal. I didn't see anything wrong with any of that. It was just what we did.
Yeah.
And, my friends would invite me out to, go to the bar to have a drink or have something to eat. Well, all they had to say to me was food, and I was there. Well, it always involved drinking because we were at the bar. So I just did it more to fit in because I always felt like I didn't fit in. And when I started gaining weight, I was literally the elephant in the room at that point in my life because I was so big. I was super uh, hesitant on going out. I was more comfortable, obviously, at home. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I was growing further and further apart with myself. I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't loving me for me by any means. So my self worth, my self value, my self esteem. I mean, it was in the dumps. It was really, really bad. The relationship was falling apart with my first wife. She ended up falling in love with another woman while we were married. You can imagine at 510 pounds, it was really hard for me to do anything because I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to do anything for myself or for her. And I was still trying to work through all this, and it was really hard. I was driving a full size Ford pickup truck, extended cab, and I had to take the seat tracks out on the driver's side and actually buy extended tracks and move my driver's seat over and back into the extended cab section of the truck. And
Mm.
thankfully, my legs were long enough to where I could even get in it and still drive the truck because my stomach was so big I couldn't fit in the truck to drive it.
Wow.
It was enormous. But that's when I realized that I was an addict. I had a heart doctor, a weight loss doctor tell me that, if you don't have this gastric bypass surgery, you're going to be dead before you're 30 years old. He goes, you're going to have a massive heart attack.
Wow.
Your heart's going to explode. And, you need to stop drinking. You need to get on a strict diet and start, taking better care of yourself. And I had Roux-en-Y back then. It was when the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass was first introduced. And 103 stitches later, I believe, from my breastbone to my belly button. I've got the scar to prove it, where they crack you open. That was the old school way of doing it. And
Wow.
going in and doing the surgery, it's not laparoscopic like it is today.
Yeah.
It's very, very evasive, a lot of healing, a lot of downtime. Um, that's when I got introduced to pain medication.
Hmm.
So, we corrected the food problem then. Um, but my newfound love was liquid pain medication. They had put me on liquid pain medication. I was so sore and was stuck in a bariatrics chair for almost the first year of my recovery from that surgery. You couldn't sneeze, cough,
Hmm.
wipe, shower. You couldn't do anything
Sounds
without
awful.
asking for help. Yeah, I mean, it was
Jeez.
absolutely miserable, extremely painful.
Yeah.
And back then, doctors would prescribe medications freely, you
Hmm.
know. Um, they started me on liquid morphine, and I was on liquid morphine for like the first 3 months of my recovery. So you can imagine, e- everyone knows how powerful that drug is
Oh
and
yeah.
how
Hmm.
quickly I became addicted to it, not knowing any better, no
Yeah.
clue what addiction was, no clue what the pain medication was doing to me physically and mentally. Um,
Hey Joe,
and
can I ask you a question with that?
yeah,
When when you started taking a little bit more of, I mean, I know you started taking the liquid morphine to help your pain, but then did it get to a point to where, because I mean, I've had surgeries and stuff before, and I've had things where I've needed morphine, and just kind of the ease that it just puts you in so quickly. Did you find that you just started taking it not really for the pain, but just to kind of just cope with whatever the heck was going on with you at the time?
that and the sleep, the rest. Yeah, the rest of my mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the daily stressor. I mean, you can imagine. I was the one providing. At that time
Hmm.
during my first marriage, my first wife didn't work. So if I wasn't working and I wasn't bringing home any money, our bills weren't getting paid, and there was, a little bit of money saved up, but not enough to cover the time off that I, was off. And yeah, it was an out. It was an exit strategy for me mentally. I
Hmm.
would, just to, like you said, like a tablespoon, and I was out cold for hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so I can definitely relate to that. I know now that I think about it, I certainly did that for sure. But it's a normal progression. I don't have to tell anyone how to use, anyone that's struggled with addiction before, understands the progression. And, it went, they tried to wean me off of the liquid into the pill form. And it just, I went through that whole cycle of trying different pill type pain medication, and they'd start you off at a high milligram and try to work you down and wean you down, thinking that you would be okay once they weaned you off of it. Well, I had been taking pain medication for over a year at that point.
Mm.
Wow.
Um, I was an addict, and I
Yeah.
didn't know it. I was an alcoholic and I didn't know it. I had mental health struggles that were undiagnosed and weren't getting taken care of. And, for me personally, and people have different beliefs on this, but to me, addiction and mental health go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And, I didn't know any of this at that point in my life. Um, I ultimately started losing a bunch of weight. Um, Mentally, I was still in a really dark place because it was all still undiagnosed. I still hadn't really seen any kind of psychologist or any doctors, any professional help whatsoever, um, because I was still using, and I was more focused on working and making money, um, and paying the bills and using. At that point it wasn't I mean, it was still getting high, but I was using to feel normal. Like, if I didn't have my pain medication that I was so used to having all the time, then I knew I was going to have a bad day, because I was detoxing, and I didn't even know what detoxing at that point in my life was, the
Yeah.
withdrawal.
Was there
I was
anyone in your life, like family or friends, your wife, that were like, hey, this is a problem, or told you about it? Or is it just like normal all around with everybody in your life?
early on, not really. Um,
Okay.
During my first marriage, no, not so much. Um, my second marriage, definitely,
Hmm.
yes. When I had divorced. She had gone on to her
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, and we had bought a house together. So she didn't want anything when she left, other than a television, which is really weird. Um, Took her TV and left with her girlfriend, and I stayed in the house that I had bought across the state line in a town called Harrison, Ohio. And I stayed in that house for several years, and that's where I ended up meeting my second wife, which ironically was a friend of my first wife.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, they were friends. We ended up dating, ended up marrying her, um, and we had a really good relationship. And that's where everything was really coming to light with friends and family. People were realizing that something was off, something wasn't right. They were starting to notice the behaviors. I had started working for a major tire company in management in the Cincinnati area, and I was making a lot of money. I mean, I was making close to 70 grand a year in
Mm.
2000, 2001, at a young age, in my late 20s, early 30s, making that kind of money already. And I mean, you can imagine how easy it was for me to go get what I wanted.
Yeah.
Um, it was literally a phone call away, and it just continued while I was working. And it just got worse and worse and worse, as it always does.
With the drugs.
And yeah, the pill form turned into the powder form. That's when I had gotten introduced to heroin. In my early 30s, the pills weren't doing it anymore. Normal story. I know many addicts can relate to this. They just weren't doing it. They were getting too expensive. The accessibility was getting harder and harder to find. I was paying $80 to $100 a pop to get what I wanted. It was ridiculous. So when
Wow.
heroin was introduced to the area, it was just cheaper and it was easier to get. It was more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Not having any clue how destructive it is at
Yeah.
that point. I just knew that it made me feel good and I wanted to try it because it was cheap.
Yeah.
And I started going down that dark path.
Wow.
And we find that a lot from our guest who got addicted to pain medication, or the Oxycontin and things, and
It's too expensive.
it gets too expensive and too hard to find. I mean, they're looking at having to rob pharmacies and things like that. So they fall into that heroin because it is cheaper. And from what I understand, I guess the high similar. I mean, it's comparable with the two are comparable is what I guess I'm trying to say.
It satisfies.
Yeah, it satisfies. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the pill form and the heroin and the fentanyl that's out there today, it's it's an opiate. It's the opiate feeling, the brain receptors in your body, the chemical reaction that it creates. They're the same, and it was
Yeah.
just a cheaper form. It was easier to get, and you could buy more, and get what I wanted and stay where I wanted longer. It was That's just the easiest way to put it. You talked about robbing places, and that's why I chuckled when you said that, because while I was working for that tire company, I got fired from that tire company for stealing. I was doing things under the table, putting pocket in my money, or money in my pocket that wasn't mine, just doing what active addiction does to many people.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting fired for theft. And I went into a really dark depression and the anxiety went through the roof. I was at home with my second wife, poor me, myself, and the death. She was actively working. She was paying all the bills. I had 401k and had money set aside, but it wasn't going to last. We were going through it really quick. And I started detoxing and withdrawing a lot. And I was starting to get cut off from friends and family, money, from all the manipulation and me crying wolf all the time and saying I need money for this and money for that. They were wising up to my behaviors and my antics and the chaos that I was creating. And they were starting to set healthy boundaries for themselves and were protecting themselves, doing what they should do. And, I was running out of money. I was running out of means and ways to get what I wanted. So, the addictive part of my brain was really, the wheels were turning. And when I was in upper management with that tire company, I had alarm codes. I had keys. I had keys that they didn't know that I had, even after they fired me. And that's when I became a convicted felon in my life. I had been fired. I had been gone there for a couple months, was laying in bed one Sunday, withdrawing, no money, and was sick. And I didn't want to be sick anymore and was really going through it. And I had already attempted treatment center number one, which was just a quick detox, 3 to 5 days, in and out. They send you home and, hey, you're healed. Go to this outpatient program. You'll be fine. Well, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Family and everyone had high hopes, but no one knew about it. No one in our family knew anything about addiction, and neither did I at that point whatsoever. Just no education whatsoever. So they didn't know any better. They just thought that I'd go to detox for 3, 5, 7 days, and I would come out and I'd be normal Joe again. Well, I wasn't normal Joe again. And I ended up going back to that company and I ended up robbing 5 of their stores
Wow.
in 3 different states, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. all in one day,
Wow.
and went on to run for, oh my gosh, I think from like July until, this was like in 2010, um, like July to October, until they finally caught up with me. And I ended up getting arrested, of course. They
How did they
ran,
know it was you, Joe? Was it, I mean, video cameras and things like that?
well, apparently, in my stupor of being extremely high and intoxicated at the time of my robberies, I'm driving myself around in a $500 beater with a heater, you know. That's what we call them in Ohio, beaters with heaters. I was cruising around in my car, and one of the stores that I had broke into, I had to break a window out of the store. And I know you've seen them before, the old multiple panel garage doors in these service centers where they've got pane windows in them. And I mean, I punched one of them out with my fist and put my hand through it. And I cut my hand and my arm and got a major vein. Had no
Oh my
clue that I
gosh.
had done any of that. And I was bleeding everywhere. I mean, it looked like I got shot. There was so much blood on me, on the ground, all over the building, all over the count. Everywhere that I went in that store, my DNA was just
Wow.
All over.
everywhere. It was
Oh my
all over
gosh.
the place. So they definitely had more than enough evidence to prove that it was me.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, I went on the run. I ended up getting caught. They ran all my charges concurrent in the state of Indiana. And I got sentenced in the state of Indiana because they were the harshest. They're a no tolerance state. And I got sentenced by a judge in Indiana that I graduated high school with, which is another
Holy
weird.
cow.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I went in front of my judge. First time I'd ever been in trouble in my entire life. I had one speeding ticket prior to these robberies ever,
Wow.
when I was
Hmm.
like 16 years old. And it ends up being a guy that I graduated high school with. Absolutely crazy.
That
And he's
is
still a judge there today, which is even funnier. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I did a lot of time in Indiana for that. And I ended up getting divorced while I was in prison for my second marriage. And that's my last. So if you have more than two, you beat me. Um,
Yeah, I got you beat. I mean, it's
yeah,
not
I
a
haven't.
proud thing, but I still have you beat.
Haven't remarried since that, but yeah, I left Indiana Department of Corrections, and anyone that's listening, is going to relate if you've been incarcerated in Indiana, because you get dropped off at the Greyhound station across from Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts and everybody play, and I had a $50 JPay card, which is your go home money, and my state issued clothes. And I went in with a house, I went in married, I went in with everything that my second wife and I had accumulated, which was a lot of stuff. I was an avid off-roader. We had multiple vehicles. It was doing really well, but it was falling apart the entire time. But it was still there even when I went to jail or to prison. And when I came out, I didn't have anything. I had
wow.
state issued clothes on my back and $50 and nowhere to go.
Hmm.
No idea what I was going to do, where I was going to go, who I was going to live with. I was divorced. Um, Everything that I did have had gotten sold through the divorce. I didn't fight it. It was pointless. I didn't fight the arrest. I pled out. I pled guilty to everything. I didn't drag anything out. I mean, I was guilty. You caught me. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
get on with it. And I'm grateful that I did that, because when you're in jail, everyone tells you not to plead guilty and fight it and drag it out. And I just, look, you got me. I'm honest. Just let's just get on with it. And that's what happened. I left there and I ended up back in Ohio and just stayed in active addiction for decades. I mean, I can say decades now because I can see how early it started. But, for another, I'm 45 now and this is in my early 30s. So for another 10, 15 years, um, gosh, 9 treatment centers, um, multiple attempts, sober living, inpatient, outpatient, some long-term, some short-term. I've just been in and out, Narcotics Anonymous. I've tried Alcoholics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, Al-Anon today, multiple forms of treatment.
Yeah.
And, I found my home in Narcotics Anonymous. I work a 12-step program with them today, and that's what works for me personally. I think we talked about this before we even came on. What works
Yeah.
for me may not work for you. And it took me a long time, someone, thank God, planted a seed in one of my many attempts and ripping and running, chronic homelessness. I lived on the streets of Cincinnati and Hamilton, Ohio, and here in Dayton, Ohio. During that 10 to 15 year span, probably for about 5 or 6 years of it, I was living on the streets. I was in homeless camps. I was in homeless shelters. When I get kicked out of homeless shelters, I was in a bandos. I was underneath train tracks, along the interstate, wherever I could rest my head.
So really, really, Joe, right after you get out of prison, then, I mean, really the only life that you knew to get back into was that type of life, right? Because what else did you have to go back to? And I'd like to go into that after we come back. I'd like to take time right now to hurry and get this commercial done and then come back and definitely touch on that, because you named, 9 treatment centers, multiple sober livings. I think at a time you even did some stuff at psychiatric hospitals, so it sounds like you were doing your best to get things figured out, but I also know how that goes just because of seeing what my wife went through with multiple rehabs and things like that. So can we continue on that right after the commercial, where you were going with living under viaducts and all this other stuff? Because
absolutely.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, guys. Hey, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you or a loved one or someone you know struggle with addiction?
Have you lost hope, or are you struggling to make connections?
Have you been to other treatment programs and have yet to reach your full potential?
We are Matter Behavioral Health. At Matter Behavioral Health, we understand substance abuse treatment works best when the client is taught ways of identifying for themselves their own dysfunctional views of their life that trigger their self-limiting beliefs and leads back to addiction.
We help you get to the core of what's causing your addiction.
We offer inpatient and outpatient services. To find out what's best for you, call us at 435-462-2781. That's 435-462-2781.
Don't wait, give us a call. Your life depends on it. Call us at 435-462-2781.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey everyone, welcome to the second half of The Other Side of Addiction. We are here with our special guest, Joe. And before we get started, I got to say thank you again to our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral, out of 265 State Street, Mount Pleasant, Utah. You can reach them at 435-462-2781. How do you feel the first part of the show? And again, it's for you and I, this is like our therapy. We get to learn so much, right?
It really is. I just so many thoughts and emotions, and I don't know. I like so sad that you had to go through all that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I'm so excited to hear how you got to where you're at now. Like you went from that hellhole to, where you're at. I'm excited to hear that. So
yeah, I am too. And Joe, when you were talking about, you get out of prison, you got your little $50 card, which is nothing really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing. It makes me wonder why we don't have places for people who have battled addiction. And again, I'm still a big believer that not everyone who has battled an addiction deserves to go to prison. But to have a place that they can go to help them kind of work themselves back into society, and have some type of help. Because I think a lot of people who have battled addiction, all types of addiction, they have nowhere else to go to, which Joe was just starting to explain before I interrupt him to go for the commercial break. But do you feel like that would have been a help to you if you would have had a place to go to kind of help start steering you in the right direction? Because other than that, again, you had nothing.
give you options.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, and I'll definitely touch on that here in a little bit when we get there, but that's why I do the job that I do today, that I'm blessed with today, which is a state certified peer recovery supporter. But that was non-existent when I was released from prison back then. So there was no resources, there was no help, there was no one there with any kind of lived experience that could help guide me and, help me get out of my head, because I was obviously in my head. My first thought with that $50 card was, where am I going to get high at?
Yeah.
And how am I going to get it? I didn't care about getting home from Indianapolis. I just wanted to use because I was mentally a train wreck.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can imagine how scared I was. Here I am in this unfamiliar city, lost literally everything that I loved and cared about, and was homeless on the street, in an unfamiliar city, with no idea how I was going to get home. And at that point, I just threw my hands up like I didn't care. I figured if I could get high and be high for 30 minutes or an hour, well, that's less time I have to worry about it. And that was my mind state. I was just really in a really dark place. I didn't want to be there. I wasn't having any type of suicidal thoughts at that point in my life, but they happened eventually. Yeah. I could see the progression, like I see that now. I didn't notice it then, but I can really reflect back on it today and see that. Yeah. You know, one thing before you go into the next question that I had forgotten to mention, you know, before I went into or actually when I got released from prison and that, my mom had passed away during all this too. I was blessed to be there for her funeral, but that's really when my addiction spiraled out of control. That was prior to me breaking into the stores. It was in that time period where I had gotten fired and I had robbed the stores. My mom had passed away in her early 50s, mid 50s. So she died at a really
Still
young
young.
age, stage 4 lung cancer. And
So
that's
that was
when
kind of the straw that broke
that
the
was the
camel's
straw that
back.
broke the camel's back. Exactly.
Oh my
Exactly
gosh.
right. Yeah, for sure.
And with you saying that, it almost, well, not almost, it brings back with what Janan went through, you know, because 2009, my wife and I, we got married. July of 2009, I lost my job. August of 2009, she lost her dad to a heroin overdose.
Oh my gosh.
And what really hit her with that, of course, she did not like her dad because of his addiction. But her mom and her dad came over to our house and she did not allow him in the house. She says, Mom's allowed to come in, but you need to sit out. I don't even want you in my yard. You need to sit. So her dad sat out in the car for an hour or so. 2 days after that, he was gone.
Wow.
So that ate at my wife. And then, of course, you know, we lived off my 401k for a while until that all went. And when you're making a $2,000 a month house payment, it doesn't stick around very long.
No.
And it was gone. Then we end up losing our house. And that's when I saw my wife start. That's when she started tanking. You could start seeing it. It was kind of like that slow progression downhill. And then just like overnight, man, it just hit.
Wow.
And it sounds like that's kind of like the same type of thing with you.
That was the triggering moment for me, for sure. Yeah, it just, everything really dramatically went downhill when my mom passed away. I mean, I was in such depression and in such a dark place in my head. You know, I can remember driving to her gravesite, which is in Mason, Ohio, right across the street from the local police department there. And I used to shoot up in the cemetery with right across the street from the police station, you know, crying, you know, on a park bench or laying on her gravesite, you know, just really being hard on myself. I'm really good at kicking my own butt and not giving myself a break. And that's what I was doing, you know, it was horrible.
Wow. What got you to the point before break? I believe you said somebody said something to you that I think finally started sparking your interest in going, man, life's got to change.
Oh, the recovery program.
The recovery program, yeah.
Yeah.
It was my first sponsor in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, anyone that's ever gone to an AA or an NA meeting or just really any 12-step fellowship, you know, you're typically greeted with open arms. In NA, they're huggers. They like to hug people, which I thought was really weird because, you know,
don't touch me.
You know, yeah, I'm like, why is this 300-pound fat guy with suspenders on that has wood chips and smells like gasoline giving me a hug, telling me he loves me and to keep coming back? You know, why is this big burly guy giving me a bear hug? Like, it was the weirdest experience ever. And, you know, you got to remember I'm an isolator and I have social anxiety and I don't like being around a lot of people.
Yeah.
So like it was really uncomfortable for me. But something, you know, he was practicing step 12. I didn't know that was going on. I had no clue, but he was practicing the principles. He was practicing the steps of his fellowship and he planted that seed, you know, not knowing whether I would grab onto it or not at that point in my recovery or not, but he was doing, you know, what his sponsors taught him. And, you know, I'm really thankful for that because, you know, it took quite a few years for it to grow. and for it to sprout, into the man that I am today. But if it wasn't for him in that moment, in NA, I don't know if I'd be alive talking to you guys right now. I really don't.
Wow.
So was it the hug, or was it something he said? Or
That's
both?
a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just the love and the compassion and the understanding, the lived experience of each and every one of the members in the room. I thought I was this unique unicorn coming into the room that no one could possibly have the problems I have. No one could possibly have gone through the struggles that I've gone through. And boy, was I wrong. I was completely wrong, but I didn't know any better. I had no clue what a 12-step program was at that point in my life. I had heard about them, but I didn't know what they were about because I didn't care. And, I was the typical member going into a 12-step meeting that we like to call it relapse row, all the way in the back in the last row in the corner. And I would sit back there and sometimes I would listen. I was in meetings for all the wrong reasons. I wasn't there for myself. I was there because my parole officer was making me go there. I was there because the sober living house I was staying in required me to be there, and I had to get my slip signed. I wasn't there for me. I was there to get phone numbers from girls. I wasn't there to get phone numbers, for my recovery.
Yeah.
I was there getting high in the bathroom. I went to meetings and got high in meetings. I was that addict. I was there for all the wrong reasons, and it took multiple attempts, multiple seeds from members of the program, and all those cliche sayings that drove me insane. They keep coming back, and it works if it works, you work it, and one day at a time, and trust the process. I could go on and on. They drove me batty. Absolutely bad. I'm trying not to cuss, guys. They drove me insane. I really am. I'm practicing principles in all my affairs right now because I have a mouth of a truck driver and I'm really trying not to. But they drove me nuts. Today they make sense and I love them. I absolutely love them. But back then, every time I heard them, man, I would crawl on my skin. I would cringe and I'm like, this guy's an idiot. Like, what is he talking about? It drove me insane, but I'm so blessed today that I had those experiences.
Yeah.
Because I get it now. I actually get it, and I didn't then.
So at the time when those sayings drove you nuts, you wasn't ready, right? You just wasn't ready to do what needs to be done. Because I've heard this a lot from many people, not just guests, but AA meetings that I've gone to with my wife, and people getting up and accepting their chip and sharing their stories,
You're all fake.
Yeah. That, I mean, I don't know how many times I heard people get up and I remember this gentleman that got up and talked when Janan got her 1-year chip. This guy got up and he was saying that he was at a meeting once. This guy got up and got his 10-year, 15-year chip. And he's like, that guy's got his head up his effing ass, because there is no way he made it that long. And he said he remembered going into meetings like you did, hearing these people talk, going, yeah, this is not for me. I don't see how they can even say that it's helping them save their lives. Because, and again, it's because, and he said the reason why he was thinking that way, because he knows now he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to do what needed to be done, because the addiction still had that hold on him. He still wasn't sick and tired of being sick and tired, as they say.
Well, I think
Everyone.
so much lost. Oh, sorry. I think it's also that they've lost so much hope and so much, faith in humanity and themselves, everything, that they're like, it's interesting that they put that limit on themselves. Like, I haven't had it, therefore it doesn't exist. So everything you say that doesn't apply to me, it's bullshit, Yeah. And it's not like, and that's something that's so hard to portray now when I'm telling my story. I'm like, no, really, you can heal. There is hope. And you just see him in the back and I'm like, whatever, she's so cute. Look at her trying to, I'm like, no, really, like, there is hope. And it's hard to get that across because
Yeah.
just like you said, like there's those people in the back that are like, this is so annoying. And I remember being there, me and my husband being like, yeah, whatever. You guys are full of it.
I would self-doubt. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was a doubter. I was a hater. I would sit in the back and talk shit. And, and honestly, I still do at times because I can still see, and I shouldn't, I'm not practicing the principles. It's practice, not perfection. I'm not perfect, nor will I ever be. And, I still veer off course. But yeah, like going into those meetings, like there was just something, I seen something in other members of the 12-step program that I wanted. Like these people are laughing, they're having fun, they're driving nice cars. Like I didn't know how to experience life, fun, love, joy, happiness without being high. And I wasn't high, so I was unhappy, and I was bucking the system because I didn't want to be there, and I was being forced to be there again, all the way back to early childhood, being forced to go to a Catholic school. Like I was rebelling. I was doing what I knew best. And I'm a control freak, and I wasn't getting what I wanted, which was the drugs, and I was being forced to be somewhere where I didn't want to be. But I did see something in that meeting, which was the love and the compassion and the welcoming. And, these people were driving nice cars and they had great jobs and were doing well for themselves. I'm like, you know what? This might just work. This might work. So I never gave up on it. I never gave up. I still continued to use. I still continued to relapse. And that was all my choice because I wasn't ready. Like Al said, I wasn't ready. Everyone recovers at different rates. It takes some longer than others. And unfortunately, some aren't blessed, with another chance. Some die from this.
So do you feel like it was the consistent compassion that you saw at this group that turned your head?
It was that and not being judged, the non-judgment zone,
the unconditional love.
the unconditional love. Like, I was multiple relapser. I get 30 days relapse. I get 90 days of relapse. I get 6 months I'd relapse, but I was always welcome back. It was, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you're alive. We love you. Keep coming back. Every single time. I was never judged. I was never looked at any differently. That's, I think, what kept me coming back. Like, man, I just screwed my life up again. I just made a wrong choice, a horrible decision. I just lost everything that I accumulated in the last 90 days and it's gone again. I pissed it away again, Yeah. And it wasn't looked at that way.
And that's how we look at it on the other side, because my wife and all her multiple attempts to get sober, that's how I looked at it. You get upset because you've already gone through a lot of pain and a lot of shame. Both sides have. But to see the success for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, whatever it may be, and then see that fall off, it's so discouraging for us, and again, we're not on that side. It's still hard for me to understand, even after all this time, it's still hard for me to get it. I mean, with you telling stories that you'd go get high in the bathroom at meetings, I know times my wife took a bottle to a meeting and she'd go in the bathroom and she'd drink. But still, people who probably knew she was doing that, she still had the same that you did. And that's how these meetings are. There were still the open arms, still saying, hey, we hope we see you back.
Yep.
Still the hugs, they're all still there. And for us on the other side, man, it is so flipping difficult for us to give what they give you at those AA meetings. And
sometimes you just don't have it in you.
Yeah, you just don't.
That's why I feel those meetings are so important because, as a spouse, you have a limited amount. Not that you aren't willing and the love isn't there, but sometimes you're just like, I'm really sorry, I'm empty. I can't even give to myself,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was for us when we went to our meetings and stuff. Like, you know, both of us were giving, you know, couldn't even give. We had nowhere, nothing. It was all empty. And when we started going to our meetings and stuff, it's that same thing. It's we don't care, just come back. You know, if you relapse, it's okay. And it was really hard for me to get into that mindset of, if you relapses, it's okay. Let's keep going. Let's learn from it. Let's move on, instead of being like, it's the end of the world and I'm gonna, you know.
Well, that's what
Let's
I
look
did
at
too. Yeah.
Let's look at the positive in a situation and not the negative. And that's my thought process today. But then, you know, it wasn't that way. You know, I would relapse and automatically go into a depression again. You know, I go into depression and I would isolate to the point where, you know, my family would be looking in obituaries to see if I was still alive. That's how bad my isolation got from other people, and family included. And, you know, thank God for Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, the Anons out there for the families and the loved ones, for the support, you know, for the chaos and havoc that addicts and alcoholics have created. You know, I get that now, and I absolutely love those programs. Absolutely love them, because when you're in active addiction, you know, the narcissistic tendencies and, you know, the just the manipulation and the lying and cheating, and you don't realize the chaos and the havoc and the destruction that you're causing. I didn't care what bridge I burned down. I didn't care who I had to go through to get what I wanted. I was going to get it. And, you know, the bridges that I did burn, I would go back and toss a grenade on it again just to make sure I blew it up. You know, like I kept going back. And, you know, finally, family, my sister's an RN, and, you know, highly educated, very intelligent woman. And, you know, she didn't know anything about addiction, and she had to educate herself on it. And, you know, that's when the boundaries, the healthy boundaries that the Al-Anons and the Nar-Anons teach, then the separation and loving from a distance, and, you know, looking out for yourself first, and the things that those programs teach the families and the loved ones, to separate yourself, you know, their BS and your you got your own BS and your own life to live.
Yeah.
And
that's a hard part too, Joe. At least it is for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to love from a distance. I mean, I really do. 'Cause again, I'm protecting myself,
It's
you know, because when you go through so many years of it, you get to that point where you're like, okay, I ain't going through this shit again. There's no way I am going through this shit again. Even though you still say, okay, I'm willing to still give it a shot, but it's going to be at my arm's length. And what I've heard from other addicts too, as well, is how hard it is for them, because being the impatient, you know, I mean, they're wanting to jump back, right? I mean, that's what I've learned a lot about from addicts, is they're very impatient. And they want things to go right back to where they were. Yeah. See, you just put your hand up,
That's
you know,
me.
but, and it's so tough, because then I have gotten to a point to where now I'm feeling like I'm being freaking pushed, just like I would used to push my wife about getting sober. You know, get your shit together, knock this crap off. Let's get on with life. Let's go. You know, now it's being flipped around on my side, and it's like, you know, you just stay right there where I know I'm still safe until I figure this stuff out.
Right. Yeah, I get it. I completely get it. I don't know, man. I'm just blessed where I'm at today. You know, it's all these experiences that I've gone through, and the chronic homelessness and the prison stints, and, you know, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. You know, I used to use all those experiences as a negative in my life. And that's that whole mindset. I'm big on cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and changing my mindset from a negative one to a positive one today. And, I use that lived experience, those past struggles and pain that I've suffered and gone through as a positive today for the hope that you guys mentioned to carry to other addicts and alcoholics and people that are out there that are suffering, in hopes to reach them, to help them, to show them there is another way, that you are worth it. You are living, breathing, you're taking
Yeah.
breath today. There's a gratitude in that. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple.
You
There's
can
always
never go too
gratitude.
far.
Yeah,
There's always hope.
Yep.
I used to be Nancy negative all the time. I could never see the gratitude in the day because I was so blinded by my addiction. And you were asking me about the support when I got out of prison. Well, that's why I do what I do today. That's why I became certified to help others that are struggling. It's the lived experience. That's the beauty of a certified peer recovery supporter, is the lived experience.
Yeah.
I've been there and I've done that and I understand it. I get to work in a homeless shelter today here in Dayton, and it's other people that are struggling with addiction and chronic homelessness. Some people that have just been released and didn't have anywhere to go, like myself. But I'm there to help provide those resources that had never been there before, that are there today, and it's growing. It's more prevalent in this part of the states, more in the Midwest right now, but it's growing and it's moving. It's spreading like wildfire. I don't know how prevalent it is in your area, if it's even prevalent in your area, but it's an amazing thing because it's our lived experience. I get to work with a bunch of addicts and alcoholics every single day, and go to work and be of service and help other people that are struggling like I struggled, and
That's so cool.
provide that hope. It's a blessing. I love it. Absolutely love it.
And I liked what you said about in your area that you're starting to see more of that, because I believe, and I don't know, maybe it's just because we're doing what we're doing here, and I'm getting more involved into the addiction realm and the world and different recovery centers and that. But I believe there's a shift that's starting here too in Salt Lake, and we're pretty well known here. Utah is pretty well known that we have a high use of prescription drugs.
One of the highest.
One of the highest.
Yeah.
One of the highest. And so many people, I think, are faking their lives that it's all hunky dory, but yet they're popping a pill every chance they get to try to help themselves feel like they are something. And we're all special. I'm not saying that they're not, because we're all special, but we have a gal that comes into our studio. Her and her husband have been producers for like the Utah Jazz games and different things like that. And she has now really put a foot forward to help stop like the fentanyl and the opiates and things like that, because her sons have battled with heroin addiction, and she's reaching out to people and people are reaching out to her. So that's what also makes me feel like things are starting to shift, where people are getting to where they finally have the balls to get up and talk about it instead of keeping it hush hush.
Yeah. And I find that when we open up and we are vulnerable, and for a while you don't hear anything. Like I recently, just in church, I got up and shared my husband and I's story, and it was interesting. A lot of after everyone was like, wow, that was really good, and you could tell it was so uncomfortable for everyone.
I bet.
But my husband and I have practiced a lot sharing our story, so it wasn't like it's always hard because you're crying and that vulnerability still eats at you.
Mm-hmm.
But afterward, there's a lot of people that came up, and then still, like, to this day, I have people coming up and be like, hey, you mentioned this, like, okay, we're doing that too. And it's really hard. And they open up, and it's amazing the people that come to you and open up. Because I really feel that, everyone's like, why are you so open about your story? And it really bothers so many people, especially in family, because they're like, this is so embarrassing for everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the reason I do it, the reason my husband and I do it is because when you open that up, it opens the doors for other people to come and talk to you.
Yeah. 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 It really does open things up. And because when I first started talking about my wife's addiction, I started having people at networking groups coming up and going, hey, can I talk to you for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah. And they pull you off to the side and they go, hey, I don't know if you knew, but I used to be an alcoholic. And it's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I've known you for 8 years. I didn't know that. So yeah, what you're doing, Joe, other people are doing, and hopefully what we are doing here, it's allowing people to be vulnerable, like Janessa said, to open up and get that story out, to not be ashamed of what they went through in their life. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back. I mean, how many guests have we had on this show that have shared their story for the very first time? And it's because of listening to other addiction podcasts or listening to our podcast that go, you know what, it's time.
Yeah,
it is time.
Well, and earlier you were sharing how when you first went to your meeting, you felt like, the golden unicorn walking in. You're like, I'm special. No one else can relate to me. I feel that is so prevalent and so toxic in our community, is like everybody who's going through it, who hasn't shared, who hasn't opened up, who hasn't experienced people that are going through it as well, that they all feel that way. And so when you get up and open it, they're like, oh my gosh, wait, there's someone else too. Like, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And I think
that pain shared is pain lessened. My one thing that anyone that's ever listened to me live before, I say recover out loud, that past lived experience. We all have struggles. We've all dealt with some kind of pain in our life. And, when we share that pain, it is lessened. And it took me a long time to be vulnerable and to practice that humility that you talked about. But, I did realize finally that, if we struggle in silence, we're struggling alone. People don't know that we're suffering if we're not telling people, we're not opening up and being open and honest with them. I like to call it butt naked honesty because I don't like to get naked. So when I get butt naked honest with other people and share my shit and what I'm going through, I feel so much better. It's like a elephant literally was lifted off of my chest when I do that. It's just so important. Each and every one of us have a unique lived experience. We all have our own story, and people need to hear it. That's why I always say to recover. It's on my logo, to recover out loud. It's important. And my personal opinion, next to my higher power, which is God, that lived experience of each and every one of us, no matter what your struggles are, is the most powerful tool in what I like to call my recovery toolbox. That is the most powerful tool by far, hands down, is that lived relatable experience, that love from each and every one of the members of whatever fellowship you're a part of. I don't care if it's just church. They all have their own experiences and their own power within. And, share those demons, share those core issues and that pain that you're going through.
Yeah.
I can't do it alone. Narcotics Anonymous, it's a we program, not an I program. And it took me a long time to realize that. I had to get out of my own way and change my thought process and surrender and ask for help. And, being taught to be a strong man and not to ask for help, and being in that prison mindset of not showing, you can't show vulnerability. And, when you're locked up, when you're incarcerated, you're considered weak if you do that, and you can't be weak. You can't do that. So that was a hard mindset for me to change, but I tell people all the time, don't deprive other people of your story, share it. People need to hear it, because you never know when someone's going to be there that's going to relate to something that you might have thought was vomit. You got totally lost in your own story, but I've shared so many times about like my food addiction, not thinking that it was anything special. And I'd have people like you guys were just talking about pull me aside afterwards and be like, man, do I struggle with food? You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. Can we talk? You know, it's happened to me so many times.
Wow.
You know, and I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, about mentioning it, because I held a lot of the stuff that was going on with my wife and I inside. And then I was talking with a gentleman, a friend of mine, for coffee one day, and I started sharing. He's the one that said, you need to start talking about this. And I remember my words right after that. I'm like, who the hell? Or he says, you need to share your story. And I said, who the hell wants to hear my story?
Mm-hmm.
And he put it just the way you put it. He goes, because there is somebody else going through the same crap you're going through right now. And I never thought of it. And I think, Janessa, you had mentioned earlier, when we're going through stuff, we think we're the only ones. There's millions and billions of people out in the freaking world, and we think we're the only ones going through what we're going
really
through.
Special.
Yeah, we're that
all
special.
All about me.
Yeah, that's
me,
all
me.
about me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to take another quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Joe's got a lot of good things going, and we want to make sure we give Joe the opportunity to share how you guys can find Joe and hear just a little bit more about what he's doing to give back to the community. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Good morning. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account. And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer prepackaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone, and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com. That's taffytown.com to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. We are here with our special guest, Joe, out of Dayton, Ohio. Dayton Recovery Strong. Did I say that right? Dayton Strong Recovery 101. Recovery 101.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I said it right at the beginning of the show, and then here I am. I messed it up right here on this. But sometimes my mind gets going because when I hear our guests share what they have, I mean, I've got notes like crazy, just things that just have stuck with me, and my mind gets going, and sometimes I zone off, and then I have to really reel myself back in because I'm hearing something that really hits home for me, or something that I want to make sure that we put in the show notes, Joe, gosh, when you and I talked well over a month ago, you were sharing all these things that you were doing, and buddy, I tip my hat off to you. I mean, seriously, where you have taken your addiction to help give back to the community and help give back to others, man, you've got my thumbs up, definitely.
It was really awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Appreciate it.
How does somebody find you? Because you've started a podcast. So we want people to know about your podcast. You've got your Facebook page. I mean, how can our listeners find you?
Dayton Strong Recovery 101. I mean, it's really simple to find. You can actually just simply Google search it, and it'll probably bring up a lot of the uploads from YouTube. But if you type that in a Facebook search, there's a private recovery group. It's an open recovery format. Anyone that's suffering with mental health or addiction is welcome. There's a business page that you can link to also, which is where the live stream comes from. Facebook doesn't allow you to, well, you can live stream off of a closed page, but you're kind of killing your audience when you do that. But you can like and share the pages from there and follow it, and you get the live stream notices. Mine are all uncut, unfiltered, unedited. My girlfriend and I go live together quite a bit. There's no rhyme or reason when we go live. We just do it. A lot of times I'll share on either the AA or the NA side, whatever their reading of the day may be. I go to Betty Ford Clinic all the time and go through their multiple readings that they have. It's just what's ever on my heart for that day is what I share about. Because I'm learning from the other side of addiction myself right now because I work in recovery, like I was saying earlier. And I'm blessed with getting to go to Al-Anon meetings and Nar-Anon meetings today. We host a couple Al-Anon meetings now. It's a blessing because I get to hear both sides of the street,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really cool because I get to share that back to peers that I see now in recovery when I'm at work, and it's the gratitude is just unreal. I just can't.
Yeah.
When I go into a meeting now and they say, "Hey, the topic's gratitude," I'm like, "Oh, you guys are screwed because I won't shut up. You're in trouble. You don't have enough time."
Yeah. I'm taking over the whole meeting.
It's over.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up gratitude because it's definitely got to be a part of it. It really does. And I've shared this, I don't know how many times. And the reason why I continue to share it, because it really has opened my eyes. That time I went to an AA meeting with my wife, and this guy got up and talked about that he thanked God every day for making him an alcoholic. And I literally thought that guy had his head so far up his rear end going, and he's nuts. He is flipping nuts. But after he got done sharing, I understood. And it still didn't click, though. I don't know how long, probably a couple more years before it started clicking. And I think it was when it did start clicking is when my wife really started working harder on the sobriety and getting more months in. And then I started realizing, man, all those times I hit my knees and prayed and asking God, why me? Why am I going through this? This path I was supposed to be on this path the whole time, and now it's led to going out to recovery centers and sharing the story and doing this podcast and meeting the multiple incredible people that we've had on this show.
Yeah.
And just other people outside of the show that we have now built relationships with. And it's like, yeah, okay, I am grateful. The gratitude is there. Even though the pain and stuff is still pops up here and there, because it's hard to bury it completely, but learning how to control it a little bit more, that when it does come up, sometimes it may take me a day or two to finally go, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to push this back down. It's kind of like that water bottle that you're stepping on, you're trying to put it under the water, but you let go and it still pops right back up again.
Practice, not perfection.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's cool that it takes a day or two rather than a month or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
At least that's for my husband and I. I'm like, wow, the exact same thing. We're so grateful. We talk about our addiction as, they were the hell years, but it's gotten us to where we are today. Our relationship, where we're at is completely different. And I wouldn't change it for the world. And I tell him that all the time. I'm like, that was hard, but if I were to go back, I'd do it all over again, because that just taught us stuff that you will not and do not learn anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. I agree wholeheartedly. It's exactly how I feel about it. I used to beat myself up over all that. I'm a felon. I can't get a job. I was so negative towards all those experiences. And today it's the opposite completely. I'm so grateful and so filled with love and joy that I'm an addict in recovery, and I'm say it with pride, and I'll tell anyone and everyone when they ask. I'm not ashamed of it anymore, and I used to be. And today, I fly that recovery flag every day. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm proud to say I'm an addict. It's just my mindset. It's just completely different than what it used to be. it's just a choice, and there's
Yeah.
choices and opportunities presented to each and every one of us every single day. And it's a choice whether we go after them or not. We can beat ourselves up and self-limit ourselves and self-doubt ourselves and put all these limitations on ourselves, or we can change our mindset and go after the things, because recovery is definitely possible. We're all living, talking proof that it is.
Yeah.
You just got to go after it, Not only let your higher power guide you, but we have to put in the work. That was the
Yeah.
key point for me, was the application. I could get out of the driver's seat. I could let God drive the car, but I would never put in the work. I wanted him to do everything for me.
Drop it in your lap.
Took me a long time to realize that it doesn't work that way, Joe has to put in the work. And when it finally clicked and the light bulb came on, the seed started growing, here I am today. And I'm so grateful for it.
God loves effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to ask you here at the end of the show to share something with our audience, and I think you just did. I mean, what you just said here in the last 60 seconds, 90 seconds, unless there is something else, but I think you nailed it.
Just never forget to keep yourself in your recovery number one. If you put anything before you in your recovery, you're setting yourself up for failure, at least in my experience. And that's a really hard boundary to set, but it's a super healthy one, because if I put the wife or the husband or the children, your loved ones first before me in my recovery, if I can't be there for myself, I'm not going to be there for them. Exactly. And I have to be there for myself first so I can be there for them. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow, especially when it came to the loved ones and the family. And I've seen so many people fail because they weren't able to do that. And I included, I'm guilty. And it took me a long time, to realize that I have to do this every single day. I'm an addict. I'm always going to be an addict. I've got a routine. I have structure that I do, my daily thing that I do every single day. And I have to do that every day. I have to surrender daily. I have to turn it over to my higher power every single day. I have to participate and remain vigilant in my recovery and keep it first every single day, because when I don't, I'm setting myself up for failure. And I have to keep that mindset every single day. Am I perfect at it? Of course I'm not. And don't be afraid of failure. At least you're trying and you're applying yourself. We learn from our mistakes, and I've learned from a lot of mistakes, and I'm using that as experience, strength, and hope. A good friend of mine says, hope to the hopeless. That's what I'm doing today, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
That was cool.
It's really powerful.
Yes, definitely. Joe, my gosh, buddy, thank you so much, for taking time out of your day, taking PTO to be on our show.
Another blessing in recovery.
Another blessing. Yeah. So grateful for your time and for sharing all this awesome information that you shared with us today, being vulnerable, opening up, like, Janessa even said earlier, being vulnerable. It takes a lot. It's not easy, to get up and share a part of your life that you could definitely be embarrassed about or not proud about, but that's not who you are today, and everything that you are doing in your community to help those. So, guys, if you like what you heard from Joe today, man, check out his show, check out his podcast, Dayton Strong Recovery 101. Check this guy out, listen to his shows, help support him, because we're all in this together. It takes all of us to continue to spread this word, and our little ball of yarn is growing. I really do believe it's getting bigger and bigger. Maybe awesome. We'll beat the ball of yarn in the Guinness Book of World Records in a different way, but yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Janessa, before we go off?
I really appreciate you sharing. I mean, you have an incredible story, and wow, I can't even imagine how many people you're helping, and I think that is so phenomenal, and I really commend you for that. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, guys, again, thank you to all our listeners for all your supports, all our other many sponsors that have come in to help us get to where we are at today. We are so grateful to each and every one of you, grateful to Resilience Talk Network for allowing us to have this show in their studio. Again, to our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral, to all our guest co-hosts that come in. I mean, there's so many thanks to put out there, and I do my best to make sure that you guys know how grateful we are for every single one of you, because none of this would be happening if it wasn't for everyone.
Yeah.
This is everyone. So guys, again, thank you for your time. And we're going to leave with this as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.